Well, hello people, and welcome to Tlatoani. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Big thanks to Paradox Arc for sponsoring today's video as we check out this brand new Aztec management colony simulator that is very reminiscent of Pharaoh and Caesar if you ever played those games. This game has a lot of depth to it with multiple different mechanics and a really cute hand-drawn art style. So let's check it out, shall we? So upon loading the game there is a tutorial campaign alongside a couple of scenarios, but for today's video we will be playing on a random map. Now this game has a customizable sandbox, so there's multiple different options you can work here, and there's also kind of a wider world at play, other settlements that you will trade with, interact with, and also go to war with eventually as well. So we can select a city here, we can also choose our basin. I want to go for tropical, I think. We'll have springs on, invasions will set to sporadic, trading will set to typical, water is abundant, and there's a number of map sizes as well. You can go for huge, usual, tiny. For today's video we'll stick to huge. And then you can hit generate here and you'll notice that it gives you various different procedurally generated maps that you can choose to play on. And then down here in this menu it will also kind of dictate the wider world to you, where you can see what resources they have to trade, whether or not they will buy or sell them. Some settlements will buy and sell all goods, while others will only specialize into certain resources. So when you keep clicking generate and you're happy with a map, come in and hit begin, and then we can start building. So this is what we're greeted with upon loading into the game. We have two buildings to start out with, a trading post and a fortress, both pretty self-explanatory. Up at the top we have some base resources including maize, timber, clay and stone, which are kind of the bedrock of our society if you like. We have our population up here of common workers. Next to this is our population of elite workers. Of course both will end up specialising in different jobs. Our currency is axe money is up at the top here. And one of the more interesting features of this game is the city symmetry, which is something I've really actually come to enjoy. Obviously something we do in city skylines a lot is kind of symmetrical design, but there's no gameplay impact in cities. But here, actually working with symmetry around the temples and the religion mechanic actually boosts it, which is really cool. We then have our daytime sliders, and there's a whole bunch of advisors and a lot of depth to this game. You can check out age structure, current housing situation, demographics, treasuries and economy, stocks and commerce, services in the city, calendars. There's various different festivals you can get into, although the festivals and the sacrifices tend to come in to play more in the late game. The religion with a number of gods to please with shrines and temples if you wish. And there's also, as we mentioned, a military mechanic where you will have to defend against raids. How hard and how frequent those raids are dictated in the sandbox settings we had a look at the start of the game. But to get started, first of all, food is a key resource, especially maize, so our people have somewhere to eat. So over here we have some information overlays. We can click on these and see a number of different heat maps, but the one we're interested right now at the start of the game is fertility. Of course, red being worse, and the more blue and green it is, the better the fertility is. And we're also going to want to be playing with some irrigation today as well. So we do already have a little waterway on this map right here, so I think this would be a good place to start building out our farms. So let's grab our road tool and we'll come straight down out of here. Just feed that road down there. So if a building or an element is blue, it means it's awaiting construction. And then let's feed a road right the way down here. And then we'll use this to place our farms. So we've also got a couple of trees around here as well. I'm going to raise a few of these just to get started. Now we don't want to raise them all because our sawyers will eventually harvest and regrow the forest for us, but if you raise them, the resource is removed completely. But all these trees around the immediate vicinity of the city, we're going to remove. So let's come into our housing, and we're going to want to grab some farmers' huts, which is a peasant hut allowing commoners to settle and farm the surrounding area. So let's place our first one here, and then we want to come into our crops and farming, and we can see our maize field here, of course, which is one of our kind of key bedrock resources, if you like. Now when we draw this out around the farmhouse, you'll notice a value appears above the top of it. Each farmer's hut will be able to farm 32 plots essentially, so we'll have that there. Now of course as we move further and further away from the water here, it's going to lose water, it needs irrigation supply. When you hover over these as well, it will tell you whether or not the field is currently irrigated. But as part of our farming and food mechanic, we do also have a canal here as well. So from this main body of water here, I'm going to drag my canal out, and then I'm going to bring it up the middle. And to get started here, I'd probably advise doing kind of 4 to 6 farming huts is always a good kind of baseline to go for. So let's get these in. So I'm just going to run this in the pattern. Let's drag the canal up. You can also drag them under the pathways as well, and it'll create a little bridge, which is really nice. And that will definitely double up our farms once we kind of need the extra capacity. So really simple pattern. And I really love this irrigation mechanic. They look great as well when they start getting built. I'm just going to leave the game paused while we're starting to play here. And we'll do maize. I guess we'll do kind of 4 maize fields. And then we'll switch over to do some chilies, because you are going to want variation in the diet. Very similar to kind of like Manor Lords and Farthest Frontier. You don't just want one type of food. But we do need a fair amount of maize at the start. So let's get these in. And then just for a bit of early game variation, I'm going to throw in some chili beds here as our last crop. And then we'll bring that canal up. And I bet we can probably feed this canal all the way down actually, but we'll look to do that when we need that extra headroom. Wonderful. So that's going to be our first set of farms set up. In the trading post, we are currently importing maize, which we will no longer need to do once our own maize is in. And we also won't need to import timber as well. But let's go ahead and play the game. I'm going to watch these wonderful little sprites move around and start doing our bidding for us. So all the graphics in this game are hand-drawn, which gives it a really cutesy style. Very reminiscent of kind of the early Age of Empires games, Pharaoh, Caesar, if you've played those kind of colony simulators before. But obviously this is Aztec themed, so if you're into that, you're going to really enjoy this game. So you'll see them move around now. They're going to start grabbing all these things here for us, which is wonderful. So we are going to need somewhere to store all of this food, so we are going to need to build a granary. I'm going to pop this up here. And then we can click on the granary itself and decide what we want to store here. So this granary has a 60 capacity space limit. So let's have mostly maize coming into this one, and then we'll also fill that last 16 value with a little bit of chili as well, since we are also growing it here. It's important if you add more crops into your economy that you do actually manage them in the granary. They are going to need somewhere to store. So that'll grow up. That's going to be very nice indeed. Next up, we also need a market. So we'll come into our commerce and trade. Grab a small market here, which will allow a limited range of basic goods to be purchased. So we can place this. Let's pop this on the corner over here, shall we? That should be quite nice. And then we also want a mason yard as well, which is in engineering. And our mason yard is going to be constructing and repairing buildings, and can also craft artwork from our stone supply as well. So our mason yard, let's have this tucked in next to the granary here, shall we? And next up, we should turn our attention toward the wood. So let's come into our industry, and we want to grab our sawyers here. And we're going to want to place these nearby-ish to a forest. So we've got a little outcrop of trees here, and they can also move around to this larger forest over here as well. So we'll have one here and one there. That's going to help us gain a steady supply of wood. As that happens, we can also return to the trading post and then toggle this to no trade, because we won't be needing that timber anymore, because we're now starting to produce it ourselves. 2 sawyers for right now will be okay, but when we build kilns, we're also going to want a couple more, because the kilns will use timber for fuel, so we're going to want to make sure we have that extra surplus in stock. When you click on the buildings as well, you'll also get a breakdown of the staff and their production chain. You can toggle this on and off if you want to suspend work at the building, but I've never really found a reason to do that. So we're also going to want room for more commoners as well as the town grows out, so let's begin to map out some road frames here. Let's connect these roads down toward the farm area. And then over this way, we'll bring them down toward the water. And we can start to house some of our commoners over this way. Let's come back into our housing. We'll grab our common house, which is an artisan home that helps craftsmen and labourers settle in our city. And now where can we put this? We could actually put them here, but I think I'd rather save this for a bit more infrastructure buildings. So let's do 4 rows of common house here. And then we'll just box that in with a road. And we'll leave a little bit of distance between our farms and our houses here. And that should be enough for right now. We'll get 8 common homes in, and then we can watch our population cap begin to increase as well. We also need to come into our health and safety tab. We want a couple of buildings from here first of all. We want our sweepers, which are obviously going to help keep the streets spotless and transport soil and detritus away from housing. This is only a really small building, so we can probably squeeze this in a pretty central location, because these guys are going to want to get around the city. In terms of actually kind of commutes and transports around the city, you do want to be careful of kind of logistics. You don't want things to be too far. People will commute a long distance, but the longer they have to walk, the less efficient your chains are going to be, so that's something to bear in mind as well. We also want a sentry post, which will allow sentries to patrol our streets and keep petty crime to a minimum. Again, this is only a little one-tower building, so while it's got some space around the mason yard, we'll pop this over here as well. And then lastly, from this menu for the meantime, we want a well dipper, of course, which is going to be a way for people to get water. And it's also going to help put out fires should any arise in the city. And where do we want this one to lie? Let's have this maybe, I guess, in and around the town centre by the farms might be a good shout. Got room for another one there as well, should we need it. So now we can watch all these little sprites move around, build our farms. You'll see them planting these crops, and the canals are really awesome. You see they get these little trees next to them here. It's a really cool game. I never played Pharaoh or Caesar, so this is kind of my first experience of these very much kind of themed historical colony management games. Now, the hand-drawn art style, big shout out to the dev. He's done a wonderful job here of all these little graphics. It's a very kind of charming art style, isn't it? I'm a big fan of it. So we've got a couple of values on the left here to meet as well. If we hit prosperity, there's a number of city aspects that we can check into. So over here, prosperity is going to be dictated by our city funds, debt, profit and loss, common housing, elite housing. Culture ties into the decoration, the beautification, the religion and the education of the city. Might, obviously tied to your military might. Prestige, tied in with culture and population. And then there's various other ones here as well. So there's a couple of different values to meet to kind of help you progress. Your houses will upgrade and everything will kind of move forward as you head further and further into the chain. We've also got a number of animals walking around here too. Click on these, we've got deers. Some are dead, some are walking around. But we will use a hunter's lodge eventually to help us clear that as well. I am planning to use this land here as possible farmland. So I think what we will do is just clear out a chunk of these trees. So raising these trees with the raise mechanic will entirely remove that resource from the map. So you don't want to raise all the forest. We do want to allow our sawyers to kind of essentially act as forestry buildings, so they harvest the trees, let them regrow, rather than totally removing them as a building resource. Let's also have a look what we're doing over here as well. We are still importing clay, so we'll need to build some clay pits in a second as well. And we're not currently trading timber either. So let's turn our attention to those clay pits. Let's go ahead to our industry menu. And here, our clay pits, of course, will produce clay for bricks and pottery manufacturing. These buildings do need to be next to water, so whilst we've got a little bit of industry developing around this waterway here, I think it'd be a good shout to base it around this area. So let's have one there, and they can't be directly next to each other, but that's okay. We'll have them there. And then let's just expand our road infrastructure to factor this in, bring this one down and around. And then we'll also have some roads come down toward the water here as well. Most buildings do need to be connected to a road network. You kind of see as you place them, they have little dots on them as to where their kind of connection is. So want to make sure you do your roadworks as well. We can also upgrade to stone roads once we get into kind of major stone production. I'm not producing any stone on this map, and it doesn't look like there's a vast amount of stony kind of rocky outcrops. There's one here, but this is our freshwater spring, which, while we've mentioned that, will come into our engineering, directly ties into kind of the cistern and aqueduct system in the game. For moving water around, you're definitely going to want that aqueduct system in place for higher level cities, as it's a requirement for the noble workers to have water that isn't poured out of the ground. Essentially, they want the freshwater spring to be able to do that. You see our trees getting chopped down over here as well. Very, very nice. Our farms are slowly being built up too. Wonderful news. Our clay pits are also getting there too. And we're also going to want to do something with this clay. So let's prepare our kilns. We'll grab these now. Probably about 4 or 5 of these at the minute is going to be good. So we'll place that there. And then that looks like it's going to be a nice little box to have our kilns. directly near to the sawyers as well, because they're going to want clay and wood as resources, so we're going to make sure they have plenty supply of that. I wouldn't mind bringing in some more sawyers actually, because we're going to be burning through a ton of timber. Let's see where we might be able to bring some of these in. Let's go bring our roads down this way. We'll have a road come down to the land that's being cleared. We've got some turkeys knocking about here as well. Big turkeys, aren't they? That is apparently a juvenile. We'll capture those eventually. We can also farm them, but that's a little bit kind of mid-game food mechanics rather than getting it right off the bat. Our clay pits are being constructed here. We're also going to want a porter yard for our town as well, so let's grab that. So the porter yard is going to store goods that are strictly for local use, so they won't go to the trading post. They're going to be used just for our settlement. So let's see where we can get this. We're going to want it relatively nearby to the industry. So let's go for... Yeah, you can't currently rotate buildings, but I believe the dev is going to look at it. Just limitations with current sprite mechanics. So everything is kind of fixed to this isometric axis, if you like, right now. But hopefully that'll come in a future update. The game is launching to early access as well, so I expect a stream of updates as it moves through its early access phase. And here we go. Let's speed up time here so we can watch some of these buildings get done. But you notice some people walking off toward the outside connection over here. There they go. More garden people coming in too. There's really helpful notifications here as well. We are short of common workers, but we should have some houses coming in here as well, so that should stabilize in a second. And we can watch our clay pits get built up here, which is wonderful. Here we go. We can see the canals coming in now as well. Then they look great. See the water flowing through here. And then once all these segments are built, the water will flow down. So as we now hover over this maize field here, we can see that it is irrigated. So a big fan of the farming mechanics. I love seeing the functional canals there like that. Now we've got our chili beds getting built over here as well in a second. As we have placed down quite a lot of industry right now, let's return to building some common homes. We'll do another row of 4 here. One more there. And also click and drag the buildings out as well, which is always a handy mechanic. And then we'll feed these roads back down into that farming district there as well. With our porter yard that we placed, we also want to come in here and just double check that we are actually storing stuff. So we're going to be using a lot of timber and a lot of clay, very similar to the granary. This building also has a set amount of storage space. So we'll have equal splits of timber and clay here, since they're going to be our most common building materials. And we are still importing stone as well, because we don't have a way to harvest it here. You can also change your trade partner here as well. You'll notice as you trade them, some things become locked because that specific settlement isn't selling that resources. But Tenochtitlan is actually exporting and importing everything, so there's no limitation for us there. We can also turn off clay import now as well, since we will no longer be needing that. And that's going to end up costing us money to import that produce as well. Our kilns are now built, so we will start producing pottery soon, which is a really good early game export. Let's also remove timber from the trading post as well. We also don't need to do maize anymore either, so we can get rid of that. And then let's export, say, 12 pottery. And we'll also keep that stone coming in as well. So we're now exporting the pottery. Once it's made, it will be shipped out here. Any surplus can be used for our city itself. Doing pretty good here. Things are starting to get a bit up. Let's fast forward time a little bit further on. Wait for these final chili beds to be built over here. And our canals are also getting built now as well. You see the water beginning to flow through here. So there's the forestry mechanic in play there. We can see that when the sawyer harvests the trees, they do leave the stump behind for it to regrow. When we raise them, it is entirely removed. For this here, I did want to place some more sawyers down, didn't I? So let's go ahead and do this now. I wouldn't mind a few of them. So where can we place you guys? Maybe out this side. So we'll save room for that canal to flow through, because we'll also hook it into this body of water. So that's that tile there, isn't it? So let's do 2 more sawyers this way. And then we'll also grow that canal out as well. So it'll automatically generate the bridge under the pathway. And then we'll feed that out into the body of water. So water can enter the irrigation system from 2 different directions. There we go. We can see the little bridge. both animals and our Aztec people will use it. So when you hover over each of the buildings, you'll get a little breakdown of what resources they're using and how far into their production system they are. This kiln right here is about to produce a little bit of pottery, which we can then use to send to the trading post to make a little bit of money. I think we've turned off all unnecessary imports now, haven't we? Yeah, exporting pottery and importing the stone. We have a little bit more room here, so we have some headroom. We could go ahead and export some timber, but for right now, I don't think we really need it because we've got plenty coming in and it's going to end up getting used anyway. We can also see that clay starting to stockpile in the port yard now as well. So let's turn our attention toward the religion mechanic. There's a whole bunch of different temples you can use here. Hovering over them, you'll see they give various buffs. This one's going to watch over our soldiers and empire. This one will lead into wealth and rich harvests. I'm trying my hardest not to actually pronounce any of these names because I'm sure to absolutely butcher them. I can hardly speak English, let alone I guess Aztec or Latin. I'm not sure what they would talk about. I'm not really sure. The comments will probably let us know. But each of these gods will all kind of blend into different things. Now, as you come to place these buildings, you'll notice it says that it has awful symmetry, it'll have strong symmetry, and we can see this value reflected up here as well. So there is some structure to the layout of your city around temples, shrines, and plazas, but urban planning could be improved. So let's pick one of these small temples right now. So the god of the earth can transmute the blood of the slain into wealth and rich harvests. That sounds very good for me. And we have strong symmetry here. So let's place our first temple there. And this one here has divine symmetry, which is wonderful. So we get those placed. Now let's come into our beauty and diversification menu. And there's a couple of different things we can place around here. Small gardens of which herbs will be harvested for medical reasons, which we'll get into as well. We'll also build a gardener. And then we can also place mosaics, stellas as well. And all of this is going to help contribute to our culture ratios here, which we need to work on a little bit right now. Let's do some small gardens right next to our temples here. And then we'll also do a couple of small mosaics. Let's go ahead and build a road through the middle of them. And then let's also build our gardener here as well. He's going to help keep the garden plots lush and well tended and harvest those medical herbs. This is a really small dinky building as well, so let's have this one right in our city centre here. You'll also notice that as you place them, he's going to say, you know, he's got 2 out of 30 plots. So if there's more than 30 of these gardens or a large amount of the large gardens, then you're going to need more gardeners to actually harvest those herbs. Let's also build our alcove as well, which is a small space for drummers and flutists to perform. Let's have this one right here. And then we'll start drawing out our road networks to expand beyond our current configuration here. And I guess we could also draw a road in front of this temple as well once it's eventually built. So whilst things are growing up, let's continue to increase our common housing population here. We can get another row of 4 in before we hit the water. It looks like we will. And then we'll box all of this in here and send people down to the farms that way too. And we can probably raise these little bits that are sticking out there. We won't need them. And there's one there as well, isn't there? Let's get rid of that one. So because we're going to bring in more population, let's go ahead and preempt our farm expansion too. There we go, we have a notification there that we're lacking food variety in the diet. Are we also waiting for these canals to be constructed too? We are indeed. They will, yeah, they're not irrigated yet, but they will be in a second. So let's go ahead and get some more farmers huts down. I would like to respect the design, so let's have more canals up this way. How far do we come here? Let's draw up for 6 tiles. And then we'll have our road run down here toward the freshwater spring, where we can eventually set up an aqueduct as well. You guys let me know if you want to see this series continue. It's a really fun little charming game to play. So if you want to see more of it, do let me know beyond today's sponsorship. And we can now repeat that pattern there. So we go ahead and get a little bit more maize in. Go ahead and expand the canal system down here as well. And we should still be pretty decent for fertility here. Yeah, this is all green. Reasonable fertility, but we can make do with that. And then we'll also grab another farmer's hut here, and let's do some more crop variation. So the chinampas will actually reclaim swampland for us. We have some of it over here. This stuff here, we can't grow on this just yet, but if we were to place this stuff down, you see as we draw it out, the areas that can be reclaimed, we can use that for farming as well. Then essentially gain access to this swamp water over here if we want. But we should have enough farm land over here for right now, so we'll stick with this. And then while we do have so much maize, let's go ahead and add in another chili bed field over here as well. And then let's add in that final canal, and that should keep us sustained for a little bit. So let's also build up our tax collector now as well. So of course we'll gather tax revenue from local homes and businesses. This does need to be placed kind of within a scenic neighborhood, so we can place this one over here. And let's have this in and around our temples that are in the process of being built. The last thing we want to get started here is this one here, which is our school. This is going to provide a civic education and martial arts training to young boys. So let's have this one. It's going to sit and fit there, isn't it? Do you want this anywhere else? Yeah, you can have it there so you can see how you kind of place it on the road. It's going to kind of glow up a mini heat map so you can see exactly where it's going to be affecting. I guess to catch these bottom houses here, we can place it in the middle block. And that's going to give us a very basic education. Our canals are still in the process of being built, and I think we'll just trim back this road here as well, because we'll try play with the system here if we can. Just to show you guys the aqueduct and kind of wider, higher level irrigation systems. We do only have 2 elite workers in at the minute, so we could introduce a noble compound, which will allow elite citizens to settle, and can evolve over time, given access to the right goods and services. So where do we place this? How about here within the temples? Let's do 2 noble compounds up here, and then we'll bring our road network around the back and the side, and then we can start to map out some future expansion here. Let's draw those up too. We even get more in there in the future. Yeah, let's do, I guess we'll do 2 more. I think that should be good. As we're clicking into our money, you can set property, business and tax rates. But right now, I'm just going to stick with the basic 15%. You can increase these, the darker the number becomes, of course, the more impact on happiness that's going to have. But everyone's pretty happy right now. City mood is good and people wish to come to the city, so we should be okay. So let's speed up our time here and watch our city get built out. See our new farms being built here as well. We must be waiting on... Yeah, structure not yet complete. We're still waiting for these canals to get built up here, but you can see what the 4 ones look like now. Some water coming in too. One of the temples does ward off against flooding. I have noticed, learning the game, that you will experience floods as the rains come, so I guess you do have to please the weather god. Which is a really fun mechanic to play with, actually. Not something you really come across in these management sims, but really interesting. Let's also have a look at our military tab here. So we can pull some hunter lodges down, which will allow us to scout the frontiers of your territory and hunt wild game. So we do have a few animals knocking around over here. There's also a few up around the swamps as well. So why don't we have one? Let's see, where do we want to place our first hunter's lodge? Could have it out here, although I think I'd rather save this for a turkey hutch. Turkeys can be kept for their meat and manure if they have the space to forage. Could make this part of our farmland. How's our fertility doing? It definitely drops off towards the edge of the map. So I wouldn't mind maybe bringing the road a bit further down. And then we can stick a hunter's lodge further down here. The hunters will also help you during invasions as well. So it can be a wise idea to have a couple of them. We'll have one down there. And that should allow us to start capturing some meat, which we also need to make room for in the granary. This one's pretty full. We're not really stockpiling chilies at the minute. So let's, there you go, you can see a little bit of flooding there when it comes up. I haven't noticed any major impacts of that, but hopefully it won't be too much of an issue. So yeah, we need to store meat here now. So let's reduce a couple of spaces for chilies. And then we'll add those 2 we save in for meat as well. I guess we could also bring maize down too, because we're not really fully stockpiling. But it's better to have the headroom than not. No, we're waiting on our tax collector, which is quite an important building. We want this to be to get done pretty quickly, but it'll get done in time anyway. In terms of further military buildings, there is obviously a wall system here. We can build stockades out of wood or stone. Obviously, stone being the stronger. And there's also gates here as well if we want to let our people pass through. But I think for right now, we should be okay. The raids aren't too intense, of course. They are dictated by your sandbox settings. But our settlement will be able to defend itself for the time being. Hopefully we'll get a raid in today's episode too. But I think we could place some barracks. So this will house professional soldiers and allow able-bodied male population to be drilled for war. This is a beast of a building. So we could have this one. Why don't we have it down a kind of central mall here where we're going to have some more of our temples. We could have it there. And then we'll let that road go up and behind to keep up with this little, I guess, couplet system. Did the Aztecs use couplets? Probably not. But they always work. So we'll have one in there as well. Draw out some road frames. In terms of base resources, we are still waiting on a couple of lodges over here to get built. So we'll fast forward our time again. What is it you're actually wanting? The raw timber, which is probably being used up by the kilns, isn't it? What we might do then is just briefly pop back to our trading post and just ask for a small bit of timber import just while we manage the buildings here to come in. Here we go, we can see our barracks starting to fill up now as well. It's currently 14 or 16 now as they come in. You'll see them doing their training in the courtyard as well. So that will allow us to summon our troops here a little easier. We've got 3 captains, each of them has 3 soldiers each, which will give us a total of 2 captains and 6 troops, but we don't need to worry about them just yet. That'll be enough to defend our early game settlement. One of our second Sawyers is also completed over here now as well, and the fourth one is very nearly done. Here you go, canals are getting built through here now, starting to see the water come through. Just waiting for these last few segments to be built. Let's also up our property tax a little bit too, just so we can start to bring stuff in. We'll also up our property tax a little bit here as well, just so we can start to gain a little bit more money, hopefully push our economy into the positive. We do now have divine symmetry as well. And the god of Zype, Totek, if I'm pronouncing that right, is impressed. Whereas the other gods are actually all neglected. So we'll have to keep our eye on those. But you won't really need to get into the festival and sacrificial offerings for a little while yet. It tends to be more late game. See, we have no festivals upcoming here and 0 sacrifices. As you click on a building as well to check out the people working there, they will also gain levels, essentially experience levels, becoming more efficient at their jobs. Currently here they have 3 enemies killed, at least this guy does, so they're going to be getting experience and get better as they're going over time. We actually lost a man over here. Did he die? Or did he die to the coyote maybe? I think he might have done. But that's okay, we still got plenty of population. We are getting some notifications still that our common workers require a few more housings, so we'll run some around here as well. See if we can increase that population a little bit. And we've now got 2 out of 3 hunters and a captain working at the Hunter's Lodge too. We do have quite a few more animals knocking around over here, don't we? So let's go ahead and get another Hunter's Lodge here on the edge of the swamp. That'll hopefully take care of some people over there. But we can see our small market here isn't covering the houses we built a little bit further down. So let's bring in another one. We'll probably just do another small. Don't think we need another large. And we'll have this at the opposite end of the city from the other one. Allowing these people down here to get resources because they're not currently being received. See how they're just a little bit out of the radius there. So that will help these people get their services. Again, you can click on the buildings and see exactly what it is. They're also lacking a little bit of diversion, so let's see if we can give them something to make them happy. We could do a few more small gardens around here. Why don't we have a few there? I wouldn't mind, could we possibly... Oh, we're wonderful. We're getting invaded. The enemies are on the march. They'll be here in 2 months from the southeast. Which I'm guessing it's a little bit difficult to tell on an isometric perspective, isn't it? But down here, I'm assuming they're going to come from. But we'll see a little bit of fighting as well. We should be able to defend. We've got pretty good forces here at the minute, alongside the 2 hunter lodges too, so we'll be able to defend against that first raid. Let's have what people needed over here. These guys don't have servants. They're also lacking in civic as well. Let's see if we can provide some more stuff for them then. So we could also do with a herbalist. The herbalist will provide treatment for common illnesses using herbs and spices gathered from the gardens. So we could have this as well. Can we place this so everyone is covered? Pretty much. Just those houses down towards the south will suffer, but as long as most of the population is happy, we should be alright. Poor nutrition is also a problem. Let's see what's going on here. So we can increase the healthcare here by having saunas, steam baths, dentists. We just built the herbalist, so we'll see how that works. Let's go to our invasion point. So they're coming from over here. No, that was the total opposite end of the map, wasn't it? From where I thought the southeast would be. So let's put our rally point here. We've already got quite a few captains here, don't we? So let's send 3 of them. I think should be enough to fend that off. We can see the enemy flag there. There they come. And we'll see our forces here. These guys have got all their war gear on. And they should walk over and meet in battle with these enemies. Which are coming from another settlement. We'll hope to see a bit of fighting here. All kicking off. A little bit of spear warfare. So these guys are from Excala. I have no idea how to say that. I'm very wary of butchering all these Aztec names. And they've been defeated. Wonderful. So they pose no further threat. And then we just click our flag here, disband the current forces, and then they'll walk back and go about their duties over there as well. We are now starting to make a profit, I believe. Yeah, we're just slightly positive, which is good. So once we increase that deficit, we can, well, surplus rather, we can begin to bring in more costly services and whatnot. And now we're just waiting on a few more staff to arrive at the market, which they should imminently. And we've got a few visitors here now, which are all receiving +5 health, which should start to bring up our health. Yeah, everything running smooth at the herbalist. We can also look to give them various other healthcare services as well. How are we doing for food over here? I was wondering maybe if it's worth building. This granary isn't actually in range of the chili beds, is it? So with that in mind, let's actually refuse to accept any chilies or meat here. We'll go 4 maize on this one, and then we'll build ourselves another granary down this way by the chili beds. Can we get you in here? Terrain is blocked. That's because we've got these little swamp things here, so this is probably a good time to show this off actually. We want to build these and reclaim this land here by planting that particular crop, which will essentially make it buildable land. So we can reclaim a little bit of the map here that we don't currently have. Whilst that goes on, we could build another granary fairly centrally. These will take a little while to mature. I think we will do that. Let's go ahead and grab another one here. If we were to put you on the corner, we can store a little bit more chili and maize here, and then also the meat from one of the hunters' lodges. Our first granary is actually also in range of meat, isn't it? So it has a hunter's lodge nearby, so we'll accept meat there as well. And then this one here will be mainly set up for chilies and meat, and we do have a couple of maize farms nearby, so we can also accept that as well. We'll get those built. You'll see these growing here. They'll take a little while to mature. It's not an instant reclaim. You do have to wait for them to grow to get that land back. Let's also go ahead and build a couple more common homes here. Let's actually raise that one. We don't want that there. Move it over a touch so it's next to the market. And then we'll bring in some more of those small little gardens here where we've got them. And then to actually harvest these, we're going to want another gardener as well, because I think they're currently out of range, aren't they? Yes, they are. So let's have another gardener tucked in just behind. And then we can place some more herb gardens over here, which will help further fuel the herbalist over there as well. In terms of further healthcare, we could get into a sauna. This would... I mean, what do these guys want? What's their current health values? They're served by the herbalist, the well dipper, and the sweeper. I'll be doing 4 sweepers. Where's our first one over here, isn't it? Most of the city is caught by him. These guys aren't being served by it, so could do another one down this end of the city as well. Make sure all the crap is swept away. And let's get a few more healthcare buildings down. We'll also throw down the sauna, which has a chance for weary citizens to unwind and cleanse themselves, but has a shady reputation. We won't go into why that is. And then we'll also grab a dentist as well, which of course is going to keep our citizens' teeth in a good state. So we get those built. That leaves our economy finally positive. We are starting to make a little bit of money now. Starting to slowly tick into the positive. We can also raise business tax as well, should we wish. Now, we're still waiting on these canals to be built. No, I think they're okay, aren't they? Yeah. So we've got a full canal system in place now. All of our fields are irrigated, which is wonderful. And getting some decent supplies of food in. Starting to get some stuff down here now as well. That chili and meat starting to come into the second granary. So we can start to diversify our diet a little bit. But otherwise, guys, we will leave today's episode there. An enormous shout out again to Paradox Arc for supporting the channel and sponsoring today's coverage on Tlatoani. If you enjoyed Pharaoh or Caesar, these really ancient themed city and management builders, Tlatoani offers really in-depth mechanics. There's a lot of resource gathering productions here. A great religion system, alongside the whole symmetry mechanic of building your city to be symmetrical to please the gods is a really unique twist. I really like that the symmetry plays into your city planning. It's a really cool feature, something I've not seen before. It does release Thursday the 31st of October at the release of this video, so I will leave this Steam page linked down below if you want to come out and grab it as it releases into early access. Definitely a title to keep an eye on this one. A big shout out to the dev as well for working on this. All hand-drawn graphics lead to a really cutesy art style. So if you think you'd enjoy it, certainly check it out. Like I mentioned, if you enjoyed those other kind of management colony simulators, you'll definitely have some fun here. And do let me know if you'd like to see more of it as well. If you want to see us explore some aqueducts or kind of further advanced mid to late game mechanics, there's plenty on offer here, especially for an early access title. It's surprisingly well fleshed out. But let me know if you want to see more. Either way, thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. Massive shout out to the patrons that support the channel, with roll calls to Andrew Perez and O'Hay Casino. Glad to get involved in that. Links, as always, are down below. Otherwise, I'll shut up and leave it there. Let's thank you all so much indeed for watching. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.
We have seen cities rise and crumble to ashes. Under our gaze, your empire will grow. Temples will stand in our name, forged by your hands. Every choice will define your path.